A very eventful day here at the Ortachang Conference Center, where a sitting of the National Assembly is underway. The government and the opposition meeting to discuss two major issues: the local content bill and the natural resource fund bill. The first item up on the agenda was actually the local content bill. But even before the debate started on that bill here in the Dome, we saw the government disclosing that a meeting that it had asked for with the opposition to discuss some 14 amendments that the opposition proposed to that bill before its passage to really discuss those amendments. The government said that two members of the opposition, namely David Paterson and Christopher Jones, who was also the chief whip, turned up to that meeting. But the opposition leader himself, Joseph Harmon, and another opposition member, Annette Ferguson, was not present, and that meeting did not go ahead. The newsroom managed to speak with another opposition member, Kemraj Ramjatan, who said that the opposition was really looking for a more structured dialogue with the government, and he also called for both bills to be sent to a special select committee
for the purposes of trashing out all these points of differences and coming to a consensus. These are two important bills which ought to be put in a special select committee. You put a deadline of 3 months, to the select committee. So it is not unheard of in parliamentary practice.
Once the debates started, we saw the Minister of Natural Resources, Vikram Bharat, who opened those debates on the local content bill, really expressing disappointment that the meeting between the government and the opposition did not materialize. But what we also saw was Minister Bharat really trying to reach across the aisle, in spite of the heckling from both sides of the House, to really engage the opposition. And he talked about how the government was open to continue listening to persons, continue listening to the inputs of all stakeholders from civil society and the political opposition to really improve the bill going forward. But one of the major announcements he made this morning is that the government had agreed to 10 of the 14 amendments proposed by the opposition, and those amendments were also tabled this morning by the government and submitted to the clerk of the National Assembly. We'll take a look at what Minister Bharat had to say.
Because we, Mr. Speaker, need to be honest and straight up, because we need to recognize too that we have challenges of our own. We lack capacity in many areas within the oil and gas sector. There are certain services that we cannot offer now as a country. So we need to recognize our limitations, and we need to accept it, and we need to build capacity. And with the opposition support, that we will keep changing that schedule. We will keep changing that schedule, and we will also keep adding different services to that schedule based on our capacity.
The debates on the local content bill continued throughout the day with a long lineup of speakers. But closely following Minister Bharat was former Minister of Public Infrastructure David Paterson, and following him was the current Attorney General Anil Nandlal. We saw Anil Nandlal having to respond to several accusations posed by Mr. Paterson. Mr. Paterson, first of all, accused the government of failing to consult with the political opposition, which Minister Nandlal said was totally not true. He talked about an entire year of consultations that he said that they did not take part in. Mr. Paterson also talked about possible violations between the government's proposed bill, once this passed into law, and the Treaty of Chaguaramas. Minister Nandlal found himself responding to those claims, and he also talked generally about discrimination.
Sir, I want to ask a general question, sir. Sir, it doesn't matter, sir. I have a big voice. How many of you, sir, because I know I have, how many of us, sir, have stood in the immigration line at CGIA, sir, for local nationals? And see, sir, an individual, I won't call their nationality, go up in the line for nationals, sir, presents a Guyanese passport and can't even speak English.
And that is why we are rejected out of hand his suggestion that we confine citizenship to birth. How can we do that when you can acquire citizenship under the Citizenship Act by way of naturalization, or you can get it by way of marriage, or you can get it by way of descent? If one of your parents is a Guyanese, you are entitled to be registered as a Guyanese. We didn't draft this bill in a vacuum. We looked at Trinidad and Tobago. We looked at Ghana. We looked at Nigeria. We looked at Uganda. We looked at Sierra Leone. And we looked at Norway and best practices learned from those jurisdictions. And we tried as far as possible to incorporate them into this bill. And what we have here is perhaps, Mr. Speaker, in the opinion of at least the Ghanaians, they said that we have one of the best bills that they have seen in this part of the world.
The two sides here in the National Assembly is also expected to debate today the Natural Resource Fund bill, but that will take place after the exchanges on the local content bill has wrapped up and that goes to a vote. Reporting from the Ortachang Conference Center for the newsroom, I'm Kurt Campbell.